Alright, just want to do a quick stream going over my Advent of Code solution for day 1 in Crystal. I didn't do this live when I was actually solving it, and it's a good thing I didn't, because I did stay up until midnight in Easter time the day of, and thought it would be a nice easy problem to knock out in like a few minutes, because I started off with the easy problems, but this one was deceptively difficult. So the problem statement was simply, you've got essentially these strings of letters and numbers, and you need to find, for part 1, the first digit and the last digit in that string, concatenate them together, so 1 and 2 becomes 12, do that for every line, and then add up all of them to get the final value. So 1 and 2 there, 3 and 8 there, 2 and 5 there. Actually, sorry, I missed the 1 there. 1 and 5. And then they do give an example of Trebuchet here. It only has 1, 7. So because it's the first and the last, that becomes 77. Alright, so that's part 1. This one's not too bad. Let's take a look at how to do this one. So what we're going to do first is we're going to just read the file. So actually, let me... well, let's do the example. That's what we'll do. So let's make sure that we can validate this example. So we'll just say input is equal to this string. There we go. And I may actually have to look up how to do multi-line strings in Crystal. That may not work there. Next thing that we do, I guess I could just for now let's just manually put the line breaks in there. Whoops. Okay, there we go. There's our input. So the next thing that we got to do is we got to just basically split it up into lines. So we're going to say part 1 is equal to input.split, and we'll split on the line break. I think I have to, yeah, because it's an escaped sequence that has to be in double quotes. There we go. Now we're going to map over it, and we're going to, for each line, we're going to, let's close out the block there. We're going to find all the digits. So the way we can do this is use something called scan. And scan also allows you, so scan actually just kind of goes, iterates over the characters of the string, but you can also pass it a pattern to match, and it will only give you back instances of that pattern. So here we're just going to use a regex pattern, and then we're going to say only match digits. Then we're going to map over that, and oh, okay, because we used a scan here, and this is using a regex pattern, what we end up getting is not actually a character, it's a regex object. So all we're going to do here is grab the value of the regex object, and that just so happens to be stored in the first property of it. So we'll do that. Then all we have to do is take the first of those digits, so digit 0, and then right now it's actually, at this point, a character, right? So now all we have to do is concatenate it with the last character. So this plus is doing string concatenation. So we'll do digits.size minus 1. And then we're going to take that whole thing, we're going to say to integer. There we go. So that will give us that first character concatenated with the second character, and then turn that into an integer. But then we just need to add them all up, so we're just going to put a dot sum at the end of that. And let's take a look at how that does. Part 1. We're going to run Crystal day 1 Crystal. Now, because Crystal is a compiled language, it actually has to compile the file before running it. So on my machine, that takes a little bit of time. So we got the answer 142, which, take a look here, that's the answer here. So that's how we do part 1. Now, usually part 2 gives you a little bit of a twist, but it's not terribly difficult on the surface. So let's take a look. Now the digits can also include letters or spelt out numbers. So we're actually going to say input 2 is equal to this, and I'm just going to do a quick find and replace on line breaks with a regex, and then actually replace with an escaped line break within the selection. There we go. All right, so there's our input 2. And we're going to say, let's just kind of copy this over. And then we're going to do part 2. And then what we can do is we can add to this regex, and we can say, well, if it's a 1, if it's a 2, for instance, if it's a 3, and just add all of those patterns in there, right? 6, 7, 8, and 9. There we go. So now what that's going to do is it's going to find the digits, or find patterns that match the entire spelling out of that number. So that gets us almost where we need to be. But then the problem is now that we need to convert these back into numbers, right? So let's do this. Let's actually create a little helper object called ordinal. And we're going to make it a hash, just same as like an object or a dictionary in other languages. So we'll just say, actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to copy this guy over. I'm going to paste that in there. We're going to find all those guys. We're going to, put quotes around there. And actually 2 quotes. And go to the end of the line. And then we're going to do, all right, so that saves us just a little bit of typing there. Maybe someday I'll get good at Vim, and that would have been an easier thing to do. But I'm not there yet, so I use what I know. There's 7, 8, and there's 9. Cool. And it does say that 0 is not included here, so it's just those. All right, there's no trailing comma support, I don't think, in Crystal. So we'll remove that, and then now what we want to do is we want to say, okay, after we map this regex thing, we then also want to make sure that if it's a ordinal, then we look it up. So I think what we can do is we can simply, let's convert this, and let's say that this is now, actually, convert this to a function here, anonymous function. And we're going to just say that the digit, and then we're going to do ordinal. Actually, this is at this point regex. So, or it's a regex match, so let's call it match. So we're going to say ordinal of match, and then we're going to say nil. So this, normally if you were to look up a hash, it will throw an error. But if you do this, it says overturn a nil instead. And then we're going to, otherwise, if this is falsy, which nil is falsy, right? We're going to return, well, actually, it's not match yet. We need to do match 0. Otherwise, we'll just return match 0. Now, I realize another issue that I had here. These are actually just, I need to actually surround these in quotes because we still need to be able to concatenate them. So I would kind of have to convert it into a digit first, into a string from the digit. So anyway, so let's put these back into strings then. Whoa. Oh, okay. Okay, there we go. So those are now strings. Cool. All right, so I think that will get us where we want to be. Let's give that a try. Let's actually comment out the part 1 stuff. Input 2. I did mean input 2. Thank you. All right, let's see what I got. 281. And let's check our answer. 281. So it looks like we did it. Not bad. Here's a problem though, and this is what a bunch of people were complaining about. The example that they give doesn't cover some weird edge cases. And here's a weird edge case. Let's say you've got in the middle of your string something like that. Now that's 8. Whoops. G. I can spell 8, I promise. There we go. That's what we're looking at. So there's 8, but then the 3 shares the T at the front there. And there's other examples of this, right? That's another one. What do you do about that? Well, the problem with the scan thing here is that as soon as it sees that pattern, it's consumed it. And the next character that it starts off with is the H after the 8, right? So it doesn't know that 3 is there. And if that just so happens to be the last number or the first number in the case of the 2-1 situation, then you're not going to catch that, right? So actually, I think this can only happen in the last situation, right? Because the left to right parsing is going to always have the issue with the second bit. So that's the issue. And the way I solved this was I kind of like the scan feature, and there's the way the scan works. There's an underlying thing called a string scanner, and so you can kind of hook into the string scanner directly and have a little bit more control about what's going on. So we're going to require string scanner. And let's say that we actually, let's actually put this use case in there, right? And so our expectation now should be that this would produce an 8-3, which means we add 8-3 to our sum of 281, and that would give us, I can math here, 364, right? So we should be expecting 364. So let's try and get to that point. Let's just prove first that it's not doing that, right? What it's probably doing right now is doing 8 twice, and we'll be off by 5, right? So yeah, we're 5 more than we should be. 369 and 364. So let's figure out how to use a scanner thing. So the first thing that we need to do is create a scanner. So we can say scanner is equal to string scanner dot new line, and you give it the string that you want to scan. That's what you do. And then, so here we were able to just kind of smoothly put it in there, but now we're going to have to initialize digits first and then push things into it, right? I suppose we could do like a reduce or something, but let's just do it the imperative way right now. When creating a new empty thing, Crystal's statically typed, so it needs to be able to either infer the type or you need to explicitly tell it. And at this point, it does a really good job of type inference. But obviously an array is just generic, so you need to tell it what type of an array it is. Now, the other way you could do this, of course, is array string dot new. That works too. I kind of like the other way, though. We'll do that. All right, so that's the first bit. Next bit is, now we got the scanner. Scanner has this thing that tells you if it's the end of the string. So that's called end of string. There. So until we get to the end of the string, we need to be basically scanning to see if it's got the pattern that we're looking for. So we can say while scanner and not scanner in a string, right? We want to make sure it's not at the end of the string. We're going to do some stuff. First thing we're going to do is we're going to match against. Now instead of scan, there's something called scan until, right? And that says scan until you see a certain pattern. The odd thing though is that this match doesn't actually, we don't end up really using it because this scan until will give you everything until it hits that match, including characters before that match. So what we're going to have to do instead is actually get the scanner position, essentially. So we're going to do that. We're going to scan until, and here we can actually use the same regex here. So let's cut that out of there. Put that in there. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is get the actual digit out. So the digit is equal to scanner 0. Then we want to, now unfortunately I found out that for whatever reason, if scan until can reach the end of the string, not find a match, but then it doesn't inform the scanner that's the end of the string. So we actually kind of have to check to see if there is a match or not. So let's do break if digit is nil. Then the next thing we want to do is if the digit. Okay, so here's my thinking, right? The reason why this was an issue is as soon as we got to 1 of these guys, and then we continued on. Actually, let's just kind of continue with this for now. We're going to just say we're going to take the digits and then push to it our same thing that we did before, which is ordinal digit, or just the digit itself. Cool. And then all we have to do is return back the same thing we got before, and then do the sum. So let's give that a try. Oh, okay. What do we have here? Missing hash key 1, key error. Line 33. Okay. I forgot to put the question mark behind that to coerce it to a nil. Or not coerce, but like catch the error and then return a nil instead. So here we're getting the same error or same issue we were getting before. It's still 369. And here's why. I mean, the scanner is basically still doing the same thing we did last time. What we got to do is when we find a match, we kind of have to back up a little bit. Say, okay, we got to this point. Instead of continuing on from where we are, let's back up a little bit and see if there's a character that we missed. Now, it just so happens to be that none of these overlap by any more than 1, so you really only have to back up by 1. But if you wanted to make this more future-proof for other characters or anything like that, you could say if digit.size, which is the match that we got, if it's greater than 1, which means it's not a single digit, it's one of these spelt out things, then we want to reset the offset or change the offset by a bit. So we're going to say scanner.offset is equal to scanner.offset minus digit.size. And that'll get us back to where we want, but we don't want that, right? Because we don't want to keep matching on the same thing we had. In fact, that's actually going to cause an infinite loop. So we're going to say +1. Let's give that a try. And finally, we get our answer, 364. So this was deceptively tricky. Unfortunately, it wasn't covered in the examples, and a lot of people think this was poorly worded. And it took me a couple hours to solve this one with some clues from Hacker News. But yeah, that's how I solved day 1 in Crystal. And see you next time for day 2.